Zevahim Daf Sadi Bet, starting from Sadi Aleph, Amud Bet rather. 10 lines in the bottom. Amar Shemuel Hamid Nadev V'yayin. If someone wants to donate wine as a korban, Mevi Mazlefo Al Gavei Yishim, he brings it in the Beit Hamikdash, and the Kohen can sprinkle it on the fires in the Mizbeach. My time. Why? Amar Krapa says V'yayin Takriv LaNeseh Hatzi Hahin Isher Riat Niharach LaHashem. 1 second, you're pulling into the fire, you're extinguishing it. That's a sword. Tomorrow says, Kibud b'mitzvah shmei kiboy. You're extinguishing partial of the mizbeach. That's okay. Any is that true? Someone takes off a coal off the mizbeach and extinguishes it. It's chayav. Only if it's partial. The Gemara says the high. That's the case when that's the last coal in the mizbeach. That's complete extinguishing. Even though I have an answer, kiboy the mitzvah shani. Here's different because you're pouring the wine for mitzvah. Tashma. Since the Torah gave permission to separate and move the ashes in the Be'ach, you might be able to extinguish it also. Therefore, you say you should not extinguish it. So you see, you're not extinguish the fire even if it's mitzvah. The Gemara says Shani Hatim over there is different. If Shad Diativ, then the because the Kohen can wait till the fire goes out. Tashma bring a proof. Wine, according to Rabbi Akiva, you can be donating it to the vaselim that goes into the bowls. Shemen, the oil, according to Bitafon, pours into the fire. So see that you pour into the bowls, not the fire. The Gemara says, whenever it says, yain nesech l'sefalim, yain nesech l'sefalim, not yain nesech, but yain that is poured into the bowls, or in ishim, maybe it's poured into the fires. Amart lo yichel, then you can't because of the extinguishing. Seemingly, you cannot extinguish it, according to how Shmuel answered. How to be this one that's pouring into the bowls according to the Bida, how to be Shimon, but the second according to the Shimon who holds it's mutar. The minute the Shmuel could be Shimon is that it doesn't matter. Shmuel holds like a Rabbi Shmuel. Or Shmuel holds. Mechabin gahel the Mishon atechet b'shuvim. A person on Shabbat can extinguish a burning piece of metal laying in public. Beshush le'izaku barabim, so that the people in public won't get hurt by it. Avalo gahel shleitz, but not a burning piece of wood, because that's deoraita. V'isa kadatach Rabbi Shimon tzivil. If you hold Rabbi Shimon, after the gahel shleitz, that means he would hold even the court. Even wood should be mutar, because it's melacha and sheikhal gufa. You're doing the melacha that's not meant for the right purpose. But the vash in that type of case, savala krivishon holds like a bishimon that's mutar. Melacha and sheikhal gufa in the case where it's not doing melacha not for the right purpose. Savala krivida is according to the biuda. So it depends. Amar Ravunan nesachim shnit libations that became tameh. Also, the hin ma'alacha b'fnei asman, you make its own fire. Misafan, you burn on the floor of the hazer. Mishun demar, because it says ba kodesh ba esh tisaref. Blood, oil, minha, or wine that becomes tameh. You make a separate fire for them, so you burn it. Bring me 10 people. The emalach kamayna, I'll say in front of them. It's not they're saying I want to make a halacha. You say in front of 10 people. Libations that became tameh. Also, the hin ma'aracha b'fnei asman, you can make a separate fire and burn it. I don't know the quality there. I don't know the quality there. No mishnah, no perek. Dam hatat shenitaz labeged. The blood of hatat splattered on a clothing. How does it? How many people have to wash it? Even though the pasuk only mentions regarding hataot that are eaten, that's what the context of the pasuk is talking about. Shemar b'makom kadosh te'achel. Whether it's in the inside, the outer hataot which are eaten, or the inner ones which do not be eaten, you still have to wash your clothing. Shemar Torah hatat. Torah had the halacha is one halacha for all hataot. Hatat was in the matter when he was pasul hatat that was brought. If blood splatters on the garment, you don't have to wash it. Ben shayitala shal kosher, whether or not at one point it's kasher, or ben shloitala kosher, whether it was never kasher. As he shayitala shal was considered something that has kasher at one point. Shalama was kept overnight. Shalama became tameh. Veshiyasat overnight at the chatzer. At one point it was kasher. Ve'ez shloitala kosher was something that was never kasher. Shalata chutz l'mizmanal the chutz l'mizmanal was slaughtered at the wrong time or wrong place. Veshekablu or intention for the wrong things. Veshekablu p'slim or a disqualified person received the blood. Gemara. Dam hatat shnitaz. Where it says that's splatters, you have to wash it. Where it says eat it there's one halacha for all hatat, like we said in the Mishnah. I feel hatat even the blood of a hatat, bird hatat should be same halacha. Allah matanya. So why did the bird say yachol tiyatam hatat often? Because you might think the bird hatat also need one ring till zot and zot. So we see that not all hataot are the same. Bird hatat not. Where it says Amar Reish Lakish Mishum Bar Kapara Amar Krab. So it says Tisha Had you should slaughter it. But it's Hatot Agim the Pasuk is on a case where the Hatot are slaughtered. Birds are not slaughtered, they have Melika. Where it says Ema B'nei Hatot Agim 1 second. Maybe it's about Hatot which are eaten. Kiditib Makom Kiditib I feel about Pnei Law excludes inner Hatot, but includes birds that are eaten. The Gemara says that already included in the word of turat. How come we didn't include the bird? The Gemara says because Torah excluded zot. Where it says Marita, why did one pasuk you learn to include inner hataot and one pasuk to exclude outside hataot? We're not do the opposite. Where it says Mistaber the hatat behema penimot hafala that we make sense to include the inner hata because it's an animal shekin behema. She has the phone also stored in the north. The kabbalah cleans also you use a kli to receive the blood, the kidden, and you apply it, the blood to the mizbeach of the horn. The etzba with the coin's finger, the huda on the edge of the horn. The ishim, and you also put the extra sacrificial parts in the mizbeach's fires. That's why the Gemara says Adram. Maybe we should include the bird hatat because also comparisons. Shekin hosin komotat, it's also done outside. Ba'achilav komotat, or in like also like it like outside. Gemara says hanach nefshin, yes, but true, but the inner hatat has more comparisons. The rest of the Gemara says America Pasuk says Yochalenna, you shall eat it. Eat it, which means lazu v'lo la'achir, eat this hatat not like one. But now chok the pasuk excluded things which are eaten, which is the birds. Ve'ela zot lamelis, why need the pasuk of zot? Ila zot, if it wasn't for zot. Amina, you might have thought Yochlena, you eat it, or hedekra, just a way of saying it. Kamashman therefore is teaching you that this is a exclusion. Rabbi Amar says, Amar Kra pasuk says, Asher yizere will sprinkle. There's a ot haktub in the pasuk is referring to halash with a sprinkle, which is not birds. The Gemara says, "V'atnan af pisha ein haktub medeber ela nechot." Our Mishnah said that as the pasuk command, not sprinkling. That's not the fact there is those which are eaten. Whereas the inyan merikav shifat regarding to purging it and rinsing it of the thing that got blood on it. That's something that we eaten up. Regarding laundering, Asher Yizek is referring to sprinkling. Iachi, echad and echad ve'echad pinot. So why in the cases of eaten and inner ones, echad pinot ve'echad and echad b'alei, and eaten or laundered or the inner ones. Inner is the most primary part. The word says Tani echad pinot ve'echad and echad. True, change the language. Iachi is the case. Halal of nami sakum the bird also not included. Where it says Meitam Hazot is excluded by the word those. Iachi is nami so that's the case. Why are the outer hatat not included? Because it's included by the word Torah. Marita, why excluding this and including that? Mistava hadat beima havna meruya shekin beima because there's more comparisons. It's an animal. She has the phone called kli keren ve'esla ve'chuda ve'yishim. Same thing. Adraba. The Gemara says the opposite. Hatat also have the meruya shekin hatat b'kmota. B'hanaf kimshin. Same question and format. We should. Why include that to that? Why are you comparing it to the animal? Why not bird? Because the animal has more comparisons. Okay. Bye, Rabbi. Hatat of sheichnis dema besavra b'fima. What is the halacha of the bird hatat with blood was still in its neck was born into the eichal? Savara the kli sharet is that the neck considered like the kli sharet and therefore becomes pasul because it entered the hatzer. Odima ketzavar b'maz considered like the neck of the animal. Midema shem hanav lo b'sra only if there's no blood but not while it's still in its meat. Mars tashmad proof pirke sa nehasal from the hazra if a person did milika on an animal and he then before sprinkling it, but in the death throes of the animal, it jumped around into the echal, back went outside into hatzer, kisha is kasher. He brought it in, it's pasul, seemingly. It's pasul, he brought it in. Gemara has the tamech, according to what you just said, the animal went in and out by itself after getting slaughtered. Lessons like the coin of tikra is pasul? No. Teaching you the second case that if it went outside. And since it's teaching you outside, we use the same case regarding over here. Regarding the bird. He specifically mentioned the case where it went outside by itself to teach you that for the case of the Hechal, there's no proof regarding to the actual bird hatat if you brought it into the Hechal by the Kohen with blood on its neck. Rabbi Avin. What is the blood spilled of the bird hatat onto the floor of the Hatzer and you gather it into a vessel. Can you sprinkle it now? Does the Torah say that you're not required to use a vessel? Therefore, if you gather it, it's a kasher. Or maybe the Torah says you're not allowed to use the vessel at all. Since when you gather it inside, it's pasul. Bring proof. You might have think that the blood of the bird hatat needs laundering. To exclude it. If you want to tell me that the Torah will say is disqualified if you use the vessel, typically the you would have said it's pasul because it entered the airspace of the garment, which is considered a vessel. The Gemara says, "Amar it might be kli b'savra." Not necessarily. it maybe would not go above the airspace of the garment because it could have just as easily um, went straight into the vessel. I made the VOV asked the question. Mitaz bigger the bigger amount. What if the blood spattered onto one garment and it went into another garment? We say that once it's thing the first one, it ends the laundering thing there. Ultimately, maybe not, and therefore even the second one becomes pasul. Gemara says, that's a good question. Right, so it's always good to validate a person's question. It's a very good question. However, the second garment needs to be washed. Sorry, if he gathers the blood from the first one, it's still kasher to throw in the derech. Ha kasher, so therefore, if he's able to do that, then the second one, when it lands in the second one, is still eligible from derech, and therefore you have to launder it. Vi also pasul, but if the halacha is that if you're gathered from the garment, the pasul, ana kribi akiva similarly the amar ahal kribi akiva. I tell the kosher it's considered kasher at one point in the beginning pasul. The matzah in kibbutz, you still need to wash it, so the second one will still only be to wash. Amen.